I would, besides the considerations which I invite you to present on predictability and the energy strategy and so on, I also have a specific question in mind for you. You represent a minority shareholder in many energy companies in Romania. However, I would challenge you to place yourself in the shoes of the majority shareholder, in the shoes of the Romanian government. Which has, on the one hand, the very legitimate objective as any shareholder to maximize the share value, to have profits, to be really profitability driven. But on the other hand, it also has other legitimate objectives given by citizens in a democratic process, like for instance to ensure the affordability of energy prices or to take into account geostrategic considerations when it acts as a policymaker in the energy sector, geopolitical alliances, to for instance conserve reserves that it has. How would you, as a majority shareholder, as the Romanian state, mix these quite challenging objectives? On the one hand, drive profits high, and on the other hand, bear in mind long-term, more strategic objectives.
Very good question, thank you very much. But I don't think that these two objectives are separate. I think everyone should look at them as one objective, and it is to basically make, at the end, Romania a better country and more competitive. So on one point, I think the comments from Mr. Predoiu, from Mr. Joanna earlier about this necessity to have the energy strategy for Romania, I mean, that should be the priority of any government or any Minister of Energy. It's not a document that should take more than a year to produce, because this should be just a general guidance how the government sees development and growth of and security of the energy market. And then more executive policies then should be applied by the Minister of Energy according to this general guidance. But my problem and our problem, and I guess all the market participants, is that who's going to produce this energy strategy? Because right now, technically, it should be the Minister of Energy. But then the Minister of Energy, as well as most of the other ministries, what do they spend their time on? More than 90% of their time they spend on micromanaging the companies that they have in the portfolio, and maybe 5% thinking about the policies and strategies for the industries that they operate. It should be exactly the other way around. Now, how to do it? It's very easy. Many countries have done it. Transfer all the companies, the state-owned companies and minority states the government has, to, for instance, state ownership fund or state sovereign fund, whatever the name is. So separate the function of the policy making from the ownership. I know that Andrei and the Gateway Project is also looking at this, but I think it would free up a lot of time of the government and ministers to really focus on these long-term strategies. Now, the another issue is security. And my question is, what is security of energy supply for the country? And the way we look at is the best security can be brought by the competitive and diversified market. From energy resources, Romania is in a perfect spot compared to many other countries. Well-diversified energy resources, where it lacks competitiveness is on the ownership side. If you look at electricity market, 80% or more, depending on the day, of electricity comes from state-controlled companies. That's where the focus should be, to bring more diversity in ownership structure of those companies. And the last point is whether it makes sense anymore in the current environment where the trends are in Europe or internationally, whether it makes sense to really still think about huge projects because the question that everyone should ask, what's more secure? Have 100 small units close to the consumers with low grid losses and lower distribution costs, or to have one big one like reactor 3 and 4 or nuclear electrica that creates a lot of let's say challenges for everyone, how to distribute this electricity, and then what if something happens with one or two reactors? That's a big risk from security perspective, because it's very unlikely that all the 100 small units will break down at the same time. The reactor may.
Thank you so much. I am not sure if you were a Romanian politician, if you would be voted by consumers with this kind of projection.
Just one more comment add to this. But all of this should lead to actually lower costs from the consumers. And there's been long discussions about this vulnerable consumers, and the idea behind some of the additional fees or taxes introduced to the industry were to use these proceeds from these taxes to create this fund for vulnerable consumers. So, I mean, there is an easy way also implemented in other countries. We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Thank you.